everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this. I hope we are all having a great day and I hope that we are learning about our civic responsibilities at the For the Oaks of Africa podcast. Thank you again for being here. It's my pleasure and my delight to bring to you all of this wonderful information. And today we are going to be talking about something that really interests me, and I know it's going to be of value to you. So let's get right in. Does my vote really count in Nigeria? Is the topic that we're discussing on today's episode of For the Oaks of Africa. Remember that this podcast is all about what? Civic intelligence for nation builders. And who build the nation? Me and you. Nobody will build this country for us. If we are waiting for somebody else to come and build Nigeria for us or build the country that you're in right now, that you're watching and listening to this, newsflash, we are going to have to be active participants in our nation. And this topic for today came about as a result of a lot of deep thinking. Does my vote really count? Right? We all hear things like, oh, they've decided who's going to be the president. They've made it who's going, they know who's going to be governor. They know who's going to be this. They know who's going to be that. They don't count the votes. They don't do this. I strongly encourage that you follow me on this journey of learning so that we make decisions based on information. And I encourage you after this podcast, go and do a bit of reading, do a bit of learning. Why will I, oh, so you say to me, why do I need to read about this? Why do I need to learn? You don't live in your own country that only use the president. You live in a society. It is imperative that we as members of a society understand how our societies work. If you do not understand how your society work, you will be like a you sort of, I'm trying to not use some certain words, but it's like you perpetuate ignorance and you think it is okay. Ignorance in this sense does not mean that you do not know how to read and write, you are not educated, you are not learned. You can even be the best in your field. But when it comes to civic duties, you are the worst in that field because you chose to be a non participant. But the best that we can do is to complain and complain. So the goal of today's podcast is to get us to a place where we are more informed. And so that information allows us to now become active participants, right? This podcast is to build civic intelligence for you to lean on when you do need to, and then to inspire you to go and dig deeper on what your responsibility is within a government system. I want us to picture this scenario. A woman lives in Kano. It's Tuesday evening, she got back from work. She's looking for something. The heat is so much. She's going through her old bag, she's looking for something, she's just searching and searching. And her hand lands on one small plastic card. She picks it up and it's her voter's card. She has not seen this card since February 2023. She looks at it for a moment and she's like the way you know how when you look at a ticket for an event that you decided not to attend, you're like, beg, just, and then she puts it back in the bag somewhere in her mind, right? Somewhere in her mind, she's repeating to herself what sounds like wisdom. It doesn't matter, beg. They will do what they want to do anyway. So she shoves it back in her bag and she keeps it moving. I want you to hold on to the woman for the next couple of minutes. We'll use her as our case study for the next couple of minutes. Because by the end of this episode, I'm going to ask us to walk back to where you kept your own PVC card. Or you walk to the nearest INEC office if you live in Nigeria. And if you have never registered at all, good. I am going to give you the research, the numbers, the history to explain why you need to be a part of the system. Welcome to this ride, and it's I hope you learn a lot. Okay, so let's begin. My name is Temisan Ojabo, and this is Civic Intelligence for National Builders. The goal is to speak to your conscience. If you caught the first version of this podcast, you would already know that um, we have been talking about democracy and all of the things. Now, all of the conversations that we've been having has now led to people asking questions, right? In our community, people have been buzzing like, "Oh, so what does our votes really count?" And they say it in this sarcastic, belittling way, as though, "Why are you championing when this thing does not matter? Why um does our vote really count?" It's not a foolish question. Some people might even think it's a cynical one, but it's not really, right? It is a question that comes out of the pattern of recognition that we as a people have seen. People have watched elections come and go, right? And they've seen the tribunals, how they come and go. They have watched the names recycle in power from when they were small up until now. There's a funny thing they say in Nigeria. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. I'm just trying to make sure that the audio is fine for those who are listening. Please let me know if you can hear me, you can see me. Okay, so let's go. Um, People have seen certain kinds of names on political parties as their representative. Rarely do you find new names. What you continue to find is just this repetitive cycle of people who have been in office from when we were teenagers to people who are still trying to be in office right now. Right? Now, regardless of the name of the person that shows up, right, at the polling units for you to vote for, the question you are asking, does our vote really count, is very important. So I'm going to take the next couple of minutes to dissect this part. Scholars who have studied voters' behavior in Nigeria, again, I told you I'm not going to give you fluff. Coming here with research backed feedback. Scholars have been studying voters' behavior for a very long time in Nigeria, and they've gone out and they've asked people, why do you stay at home on election day? And the answers cluster around a few consistent themes that they've noticed. One is the distrust that they have for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, right? Which is the electoral body in charge of voting exercise in Nigeria. The experience, or they've either the next thing they say is they have experienced and witnessed violence at the polling units in past elections. Some of them were directly affected, some of them were indirectly affected, some of them have people that have lost a loved one or another, either directly or indirectly. So the sense that the campaign promises these politicians make seem to be broken. That promise is broken. And so a phrase that shows that we have seen, in all of this research, when we looked at the literature, is that the belief is they don't, their vote won't count. That's the belief. That is the one consistent belief that we have seen, that their votes do not count. There's also a long, will I call it arc, right, of some sort. It's like an Afro barometer, right, that I need to also talk about, right? There's a longer thing I need us to just share. So there's this research network that has been polling African public. That's that Afro barometer that I just spoke about now. They've been polling the African publics on governance since the 90s. And in this polling stuff that they do, okay, the audio is perfect. And in this polling that they do, right? They found out that immediately after Nigerians returned to civilian rule in 1999, support for democracy as the best system of government stood at a striking 84%. So in 1999, when we newly moved to civilian rule, we're no longer under the military regime, there was a striking 84% belief that democracy was the best system of government for us. By 2025, that number had collapsed from 84% to 25%. Then in 2027, it recovered somewhat, right, to about 39%. And then it never returned to 84. It never returned to 24. In that same body of research, roughly about 2 out of every 3 Nigerians surveyed said that they did not believe the elections actually allowed citizens to remove an ineffective leader. So from 1999, trickled to 2025, right? That was when we started to see the collapse. So people in 1999, people saw the leadership, they started to feel some type of way, and then participation and all of the things and belief in the system started to decline, right? So what I want us to highlight is we're now in 2026. This is June 16th, 2026. What the battle we are fighting is not a 2 year battle. Many of us in 1999 we were teenagers, we were youngsters, we were in our, you know, we were children, we were playing. Some of us were not even yet born. Some people listening to this podcast were not born then. So, what am I saying? The rot of what you think is the reason why your vote does not count is not today it started. And to change it, it is not going to be one electoral process that's going to change it. It's not going to be one electoral process. So I'm not telling us all of these things, right, to just call out stats. I'm using these statistics to remind us of that woman in Kano that we started with, who already believes what I just said. So I'm telling you that that woman does not think her vote can count. It didn't start in 2026. It started from the 1999, from the beginning, right? Where there was a lot of, you know, um, drive and belief and all of the things like, oh, this works, right? And then by 2005, when the next cycle of election came, there was a plummet in the numbers from 84% to 25. That's drastic. So it's official for us to just now say, unofficially say, that from 2025, we started to experience a decline. That was when the mentality of my vote does not count started. 2005. 2005. How many years ago is that? Do you know how many years ago to 2026? Drop it in the comment section. So, I am telling us that this problem of understanding where the confusion comes from is the way where we can start. So, what I want us to do now, right, is to take delusion, take it seriously. Don't think that your vote doesn't count. It's just a delusion. It is a delusion. It is a truth because this is what people believe. So whether we say it's delusion or not, it is people's belief system. But let us not look at it as fluff and not address it critically because it's important that we do that, right? So I want to show us now, point by point, why this leads to a the wrong conclusion. The wrong conclusion that it doesn't count, right? That is a wrong conclusion. That is also like a delusion that we want to decipher. Please, if you do not understand what delusion is, quickly check the dictionary. Don't stay and say that somebody is insulting somebody. That's not what we are doing. This is an intellectual conversation. So I need your whole mind in this conversation. A delusion is a firmly held false belief that an individual holds despite incontrovertible evidence. Unlike common misunderstanding, delusion it is a non-accounted, it's not accounted for. You just believe it. It's just something that it's an unshakable conviction that you just believe. Sometimes in the midst of proof, you stay with your delusion. People stay with their delusions. Delusion is that deep belief that defies reality, logic, research, despite contrary evidence. So now, some of you, as I'm sharing what I'm sharing, that delusionistic voice, forgive my English, is screaming in your head saying, she's lying, she's lying, she's lying, blah, 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 blah. And it's okay. We're not here to criticize you. We're just saying that this is a reality and it's something that you cannot wish away, but you use knowledge, insight to what? To handle it. So I'm going to start with the political theory because people have been studying democratic participation for the better part of this 21st century. So democracy is not a new theory, it's been there for loads and loads of years. So and I'm saying all of these things so that you don't think that, because there are people that have again this delusion that your vote does not count. When if you did not do social studies in school, civic education of some sort, you will not even understand what I'm saying. So please, after this podcast, take a minute or two, go and research on democracy. Try to understand the system of governance that our country is in so that you can know how to participate, right? So there was this Yale political scientist called Robert Dahl, right, whose work essentially defines how modern political science thinks about democracy. His argument is that no system deserves to be called democratic unless it guarantees a specific set of conditions, e.g., freedom of expression, the right to organize, eligibi- um, eligibi- eligibility for public office, and central to all of it, the right to vote. So this theory, these political theorists said that those five things must be present for somebody to say that they live in a democracy. I needed that to sink in. We all have the right to vote. With that vote counted equally, regardless of who cast it. That was the last part of his theory. That we all have the right to vote and that vote is counted equally regardless of the person that cast it. So democracy is not for the wealthy. I said that in our first episode. It's not for the poor. It's not for the middle class. It is for everybody, regardless of tribe, culture, traditions, language, and geographical location within a country. Do you understand what I'm sharing with us? Okay. So, Dahl called the closest real world approximation of full democracy a polyarchy. That is what he called it. Precisely because no nation, so you know the word patriarchy? So this is called polyarchy, right? So he said that no nation achieves the ideal completely. So he also had his own delusion as well, because he said that the closest real world approximation of a full democracy is a polyarchy, precisely because no nation achieves the ideal completely. And what is that ideal? That's those sets of conditions, those specific set of conditions I mentioned earlier. That is free expression, the right to organize, right? Eligibility for public office, and central to all of it, the right to vote. With that vote, that you have the right to vote counted equally, regardless of who casts that vote. But the vote is not a decoration at the top of the structure. It is one of the load bearing walls. So, those of you that have built something like Lego or you've built a house before, please just, I need that your builder's mind right now, what I'm about to talk about. So, to vote, right, is not the roof of your house, it is literally the pillar where you build anything. So, if you remove that ability to vote, you let citizens convince themselves that it does not matter. No matter if you fulfill other parts, right? That is those conditions I gave in the beginning, like that we talked about earlier. If you don't fulfill, if you don't let citizens participate in that, you now let citizens do what? Convince themselves that their voting does not matter. And then the whole structure, remember, becomes something else. Something that wears the appearance of democracy without the substance of it. Without the substance of it. So next we're going to go to some other political scientists, right? There are two. I don't know if I should start mentioning all the names because it can be, if you're not a nerd, you might just. But let me just go ahead. For those that want to geek out with me, right, on political matters. So the work of Sidney Verba, working with K. Schlossman, and Henry Brady, they built what is known as the political science as the resource model of participation. These three people, please, I'm a Nigerian girl, so if I didn't pronounce their names correctly, forgive me. These three people, they built what is known in political science as the resource model of participation. These three men I just spoke about, they built something called the resource model of participation in political science. The research going back to the 90s, right, and it has been refined since then, it shows that political participation is not evenly distributed, that it depends on time, on money, and what they call civic what skills. Civic skills. Don't worry, in the course of this podcast, we're going to talk about all of these things. The confidence and the competence to engage with public process at all. I'll go back again. I'll say that again. So their model has been refined since the 1990s, and it has shown that political participation is not evenly distributed, that it depends on time, on money, and what they call civic skills, the confidence and the competence to engage with a public process at all. So, as Nigerians, as citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it is important that we build what civic skills. That is what this podcast is for, to give us the confidence and the competence to engage with public processes. With what? Public processes, so that we are not afraid of processes that we are supposed to engage in and change and transform and cause to conform to what we all believe in as a people. So when the entire group of people opt out of voting, believing that it changes nothing, what they are doing is that they are not just creating neutral silence, they are handling this proportionate influence to whomever remains engaged. My God. When I read this, I just had chills. I just keep having chills anytime I'm talking about this. I'll say that again. When an entire group of people opt out of voting, believing, sticking to their delusion that it changes nothing, they are not creating neutral silence. That's not what they're doing. They're not creating neutral silence. They're not just being silent. They are handling disproportionate influence to influence um um they're 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 handling that powerful influence to whomever remains engaged, whomever that remains in the polling unit, whomever, whosoever that remains on that line, those that choose not to come out is relinquishing disproportionate influence to those people. And in many times, they tend to be already well resourced. So the people that release this disproportionate influence, they are doing what? They are well resourced people. They are already connected people. They are people whom the machinery, they have resources. So it's not like I'm trying not to put labels. That's one of the things I'm trying not to do in this podcast. It's just I don't want to put labels as much as possible. Apathy does not flatten power. Our political apathy will not flatten the power. What does it do? It concentrates it. It makes that power to be concentrated at a certain level. That is why when you go to areas, they call it, the I don't want to use labels. Yeah. So one of the things we do in this podcast is to be as real as possible, right? So you will see that when you go to the areas that are not so affluent, you will see that those are the people that turn out for voting. When you go to the affluent regions, you will see that it is the non-affluent people in that place that come out to vote. The affluent ones stay inside their house. The affluent ones stay inside their homes. Why? They are relinquishing power. They are their influence, they are relinquishing it, and then they cuddle themselves with the line of my vote does not count. There was another research that was done in 1963 to study the civic culture. And what did they observe? They observed that the act of participating, not just the outcome of the vote, builds the habit and the confidence that sustains a functional and functioning civic culture over time. This was when I started to feel excited when I was doing this work. A citizen who votes is rehearsing a muscle. A citizen who does not vote is letting that muscle stay in atrophy. And that muscle does not return easily once it's gone. That's why the effect of 2005, we are still dealing with it up until 2026. And I dare say, because research usually does not lie, if we continue in this phase, 50 years to come, we will still be here. This is why I stood up and decided to come and educate us all. If you choose not to vote, your children will choose not to vote, your grandchildren will choose not to vote. Trust me. That is why majority of us are here. One of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of voters turn out from the last elections, now this election, is why? Social media influence, the power of social media, peer pressure, conversations, community engagement. And this community engagement does not necessarily mean on physical ones. I'm talking online community engagements. Influencers engaging their followers, opening their eyes to see the power of voting. Okay, now, Nigerians, there's a body of research published through Oxford Academic Press examining what voting actually means to citizens across different kinds of political systems. So they researched full people living in full democracies versus what scholars call electoral autocracies. I know I'm throwing a lot of political jargon, don't worry. We will get to the point where we'll break it all down, right? But just keep listening, you will get it. So that electoral autocracies is where elections happen, but but the playing field is uneven. So the findings from that research is almost the opposite of what your intuition will tell you, right? There was this sense of duty. the sense of duty, the symbolic, the ethnical meaning of what a citizen attaches to voting, prediction of turnout, even more strongly, was weaker in that research, right? And why are all of these things? Because in those contexts, the legitimacy of the entire government depends more heavily on visible, countable, mass participation in electoral processes. Visible, countable, mass participation in electoral processes. Then the weaker institution, what were they characterized by? The more your physical presence at a polling unit, the more you sort of inspire others to come out. The less your physical presence, the less they show up. So those were the signals they noticed. Now, we have been treating Nigerians' institutional weakness as the reason to disengage. We have said, and again, you see, one of the things I want us to avoid in this first phase of this podcast is to be pointing the issues. Any Nigerian that does not know the issues in Nigeria maybe they are not living in Nigeria. So we all know the problems. We don't need to talk about the problems. What we are talking about here is solution. Keep the problem in the corner. Let us find a solution. Let us find a solution. We cannot continue to say it does not count from 2025 until now. We're still saying it does not count. In Nigeria, right, we have been treating Nigerians' institutional weakness as the reason to disengage. The research has now said that it is the opposite. It is precisely because our institutions are still being treated, still being negotiated, that our individual votes carries more symbolic structural weight here than it will be in a country where the democracy has been settled for over 200 years ago. Let me put this in plain English. We are in Nigeria. We're not yet 70 years. We compare our nation to countries that have been in democracies for 200 years, and then we want the same results they want, but we don't want to do the voting that they are doing. We criticize our systems. We don't give our systems grace to say, okay, we are barely how many years old on this journey. There are going to be weaknesses, there are going to be gaps. Yes, you would think, right, that our systems would have adopted a faster ways to, catch up, but here we are. We're still dealing with this. We're still dealing with this. In 2023, the presidential election of Nigeria had 93.47 million registered voters. Shebi Nigeria, we are 200. How many million are we now? We've not had a census, so let's approximate. Let's say we are 220 million. In that 220 million, 93.47 million people came out to register. Out of that number, can you guess how many people came out to vote? 93 million registered to vote. Guess how many showed up on election day? 24.9 million voted. That turnout is 26.7%. That is the lowest in the entire history of Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999. It was a drop of more than 8% points from the 2019 elections, which set a record for itself at 34.74%. So the election turnout in 2019 was way more than 2023, even though those that registered were more in 2023. So it is not just to register. Registration is the first step. I want us to sit with that data for a moment. More than 7 out of every 10 Nigerians who had their card in their hand, who had already cleared the hurdle of registration, going to get their PVC, getting the PVC. Some people did not even go and get it. That's another story for another day. Who had already done the hardest part of the work simply did not show up. Compared to 1983, decades before biometric registration came, before PVCs, before all of the infrastructure that we have today, where in 1983, 25.4 million Nigerians voted in that year's presidential election. The absolute number of people willing to vote in 1983 was close to what we saw as the turnout in the entire country 40 years later. Despite our population increase, despite the new PVC cards we had, despite the way online registration was already a thing, because I did all of my own process online. The only time I went to the INEC the pickup center was to go and pick up my card. What I'm telling us, I'm not just this is not just an abstract story. This is a story of our country, a story of our country ceding the most basic instrument of self-government governance that it has. They are ceding it quietly, one election at a time. You can imagine 1983 and 2023. Just do the math. So, what's my take? Here's my view on this does my vote count question. Based on pure arithmetic. If in 2019 governorship elections, Nigeria's Electoral Commission declared the results in 6 days inconclusive because in those parts of Nigeria, the margin of victory between the leading candidates was smaller than the number of the ballots that had to be cancelled due to overvoting or other irregularities. What does that actually say to us? The difference between those who govern a state and who does not in a nation is just smaller than a few thousand void ballots. That is not theory. That is INEC's own published numbers from the actual Nigerian election. So if a few thousand voided ballots were enough to force INEC, right, or to even force to force INEC to do reruns in some states, your votes, you multiplied by everyone in your household that are 18 years and above, then multiply that by every adult on your street, 18 years and above, multiply that by everybody in your church, adult section, plus the teen section, and those in your mosque, multiply that, the women and children, and women and teenagers that are 18 and above, multiply that by those in your office. Can you see the margin? And more than just the figures, because it's directly relevant to where we stand right now. It's important that I say that in 2026, the INEC's continuous voters registration exercise for the elections that's coming up in 2027 opened in August 2005. Is it August? No, it's not August. It opened, I think it was April. Sorry, April. And it's still running. It's going to run up until I think they said sometime in August. Then the presidential elections and the National Assembly elections are going to be scheduled for January 16th. Do you know that since this April till today, that is June, the registration window those that have registered are about the new voters that have joined that 90 something, 93 point something million is still about 9.9 million. So, as a nation, we have still not gotten up to 100 voters. Well, 100 million voters with their PVC cards. Remember, you know, there's still going to be a decline because you know everybody that will register that will go and pick up their cards. So we are still not yet at 100 million voters with their voters card, and we want a change. And I'm thinking in my head, who do we want? Like, how how do we want to change a system that you don't want to participate in? Like, how? It's like saying that you will go to the market, you will not buy anything, but you will cook a pot of soup. Like, what? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Staying at home, let me see. Staying at home is not read by political system as a protest on election day. I'll say it again. Staying at home is not seen or read by political parties and political system as a protest on election day. It is seen as consent. It is interpreted as consent. So when the turnout drops, the people that are in power do not interpret and say, this is a rebuke. They are not happy with the system. Let us change the system. They don't see it that way. They don't see it that way. What they see is a powerful statement that you are saying, we like what you are doing, thumbs up, keep it up. The way for you to change that statement is to get up, open your phone, go on INEC website, find your polling unit, transfer if you have moved homes, sign up for a new voters card, walk to the INEC head, the nearest INEC head office close to you, go there and register to be voted to vote. On day of pickup, take time off work and go and pick up your card. On the day of election, prepare for it as though you are going to what? To fight. Dress properly, show up, wait, and don't give up and vote. Why am I saying all these things? I'm so happy that all those with fancy jobs are currently feeling the heat of Nigeria. You must be, for you not to feel what is going on in Nigeria right now, you will probably be a billionaire, if not a trillionaire. You must be a billionaire for you not to feel what's happening in Nigeria. Because even regular people, middle class that are doing well, they are feeling the brunt of the current economy. So for you to now relinquish all that you have experienced in the last 4 years because you are to spend 15 hours on the polling unit compared to 4 years of another, do the math. Which one do you prefer? Will you rather spend even 2 days in the polling unit to make sure that all is counted, all is registered, all is everything is working, all your votes get counted, and your voice is heard, than you stay in your house and sleep? And then you will still sleep for the next 4 years, and you will feel the impact and the consequence of that sleep that you slept on voters' day, on election day. When you get up and register for your voters card, I will say this until it becomes a rhyme in your brain that you will never forget. When you wake up from your sleeping bed and you go register to get your PVC card, you go and pick up your PVC card. On the day of election, you get up and go and vote. You are making a statement. Showing up to vote, especially in regions where past elections have seen such violence, intimidation, thuggery at polling stations, takes nerve, and you have it. Because the scenario I painted in the last episode of the podcast, where I said, let me paint the scenario again. If in your street you have 40 houses, and I'm just using this as an example, in each home in those 40 houses, you have two adults on your street. Two times 40 homes is what? 80 people on your street alone, adults. Then the older citizens in your whole street combined, let's say they are what? 20. 80 plus 20 is what? 200. 100. Then you now have teenagers. Let's say 18 to 19 to 20 teens, between 18 to 19. The teenagers still in your on your street, they are about another 20. That's 120 people. On election day, all 120 people of you come out. Because why? Your estate, your street has a gate. That gate has security. That security, they tax everybody on that street to pay for that security so that that security can continue to be there. When the gate spoiled, they taxed all of you on that street to pay that levy so that that gate can remain. So you all know yourself. It's not as if you don't know who is living in the next door house, because when it comes to security money, security deposit, you know the people that have paid, you know the people that have not paid. All 120 of you outside waiting for the ballot boxes to come. The ballot boxes come. The people that are INEC officials come. All of you are sitting down there. Everybody is watching the system that's working. Now, that 120 of you on street A, street B has their own 120. Street C has their own 20. Just picture the cross sign, right? 120, 120, bottom 120, north 120 of your street 120, west of your street 120, south of your street 120, then your own street on the west is 120. The east, sorry, on the east is 120. That's how many people. Please explain to me how thugs will bypass 120 people coming from here, come inside your own street, steal ballot box, bypass the 120 in front, bypass the other 120 in the other front, bypass the other 120. And remember, we're using 120 as the base. For some streets, they're up to 500. For some streets, they're up to 700 adults eligible for voting. Then, if you now join the whole area, that is your whole, the side that you are living, at least we're talking 500,000 people. How will thugs pass through 500,000 people, steal ballot box, and walk safely with their two legs out of that street? Nobody will say, who give you ballot box? Show me your ID card. Are you an INEC official? No adults will be able to say, why are you holding, are you an INEC official? Show us your card. Why are you holding that? And people will say, bros, show us your card. Sister, what are you doing with that boxes when you are not an INEC official? Is that what we're trying to say? Should we have streets that have gates? Why don't we lock our gates during election? Why do we leave it open? For safety reasons. When it's time, we can lead, we can all create. We're already creating our security for ourselves. Is it not our country? We all know the realities of our country. We're already creating our security. So why can't we make provision to escort? We can use private security services if the government security services are not available for us. Why can't we get official security people in security outlets to escort our street ballot box? Because the future of our streets depends on that ballot. The future of our area depends on that ballot. The future of our local government will we escort? You see the way they were playing World Cup now, that other countries were escorting their players. We will be escorting with leg. They can even be slow. The car will be driving slowly. We will escort it to the INEC official. We will stay there. If they don't have light, we can even carry fuel and escort them. Carry this just in case they don't have light, they don't have generator. We can even carry generator and follow them. Just in case. Why do we suddenly leave it all and then we say the process is flawed? We say, see, this democracy, they will not help us do it all. We all have to come together to do it for ourselves. We all have to. Will it be easy? No. Is it easy for us right now? No. So, which of the unease do we like? The unease of 2 days, that all our votes get counted, we get what we need, we select the leader we choose, praise God, we now go and rest for 4 years. Or you rest for 2 days of the election, right? And then the aftermath is 4 years, and if we're not careful, 8 years and beyond. Choose. Think on these things. Let's just think. Oh, I'm not think about it. We gather to put security gates in our areas for safety reasons. Why can't we gather to safeguard our vote on election day? It's the same infrastructure. We don't need any other thing. Same infrastructure. All of us live in gated communities. Use that same gated process to ensure that our votes are safe, to ensure that we escort everybody. We escort our votes. We sit down there because we know that the future of our life, our nation, our children hangs on who leads, hangs on who we choose to put in position. Regardless, and this is non-partisan. Anybody can vote who they like. You will make that choice. But you see, voting, you must vote. You must vote. You must vote. We must all vote. Now, let me track back again. I want to bring, so when I was doing this research in order to prepare for this podcast, we needed to go back, right, to be able to come forward. You know, there are some people of the school of thought, they say to continue to do the same thing. I forget, I don't remember. Let me leave that school of thought. When I remember, I think the way they say it, like to keep doing this, to have the same behavior over a period of time, every time, right? If you continue to do that and you don't change your behavior, you remain in that behavior, but you're expecting a different outcome. That is madness. To continue to maintain certain behaviors, not change, but complain and complain. Is that normal? Does that show that we're a thinking society? Does that show that we are critically thinking? On that day, I want to take us to, let's not go there. Let's just leave it. So I want us to please think about what I have said. I know it's painful. I know many of us has been hurt by the election process in Nigeria. I know. But my question is, has anything improved drastically in a positive sense since just a few turned out? So if just a few turned out and nothing has improved, what can we do to better that process? If you are not yet registered to vote, the continuous voters registration window is still open right now. Please, I beg you all, in the name of God, you can begin the process online through the INEC CVR process portal, and then you can go there and complete it physically. If you don't understand the process, go there, they will help you. They'll be asking you questions, they'll fill it up. Go to they have designated centers scattered across all local government areas. Don't wait for the deadline week and then you pack yourself and then you go there and then they'll say their server has crashed. And then see, this is part of your life. When election happened and it was complete, did you pack your bag and leave Nigeria? You are still here with me. All of us are here. So even when the process slows down, remain, be patient. The queues, stay back, be patient. The people shut the door, they shout at you. Be patient. You are the one that know what carried you there. You're the one that knows how your salary is not matching your bills. You're the one that knows how everything has increased except your pay. Your business, how is it going? For those who are flourishing, I'm happy for you. For those that are not flourishing in their business, carry your card, get your card. If you've already registered, please still go back to the portal, confirm your PVC collection center, confirm it, make sure it is clear. It is not when the whole thing starts, you'll be like, they changed my polling. Check. It is not in December, a month to it. You now check, you now be, when the razzmatazz and the heat of everything start to increase, you now be running helter skelter. That is not wise. That's not proactive. So if you have moved out of your last um, residential address, you will need to transfer to where you currently live. Use that transfer process on that portal. Is there. Once you finish step one, it will tell you. Then it will tell you, read. Don't be impatient. Read. Your future is determined by who is in a political process. Let me just say something. All of you and all of us that have been fasting and shouting and praying, how markets? Pastors are trying. They're doing their best, but this is not a prayer matter now. This is a civic responsibility matter. It is when we now do our civic part, the prayer of our pastor and the prayer of everybody praying will now be working. You cannot be in the mud and be praying to come outside of the mud when you should have built an infrastructure to pull people out of mud. What, you want God to send angels to draw people out of the mud when he has given people the brain to build a mechanism to pull people out of mud? What are we saying? If your card is sitting in a drawer, please bring it out. Like that woman. Don't do like the woman that we made an example of in the beginning. Bring it out. Go to the portal. Put the information there. Register. Check. Are my details correct? Did they change my polling unit? Check. Because that happened to people in the last election. Where they used to vote, they didn't go and check. They went back there. They had changed the polling unit. Check. When you check, screenshot it so that you have it as proof. Check every month so that nobody will go and play. Nobody will mistakenly press something and scatter everybody's polling unit. Continue checking every month till the portal closes and shuts down. Continue checking. Is my polling unit still the same? And then all of you on your street, start to plan. January 16 is coming. How are we going to do the election? What safety measures are we going to put in our streets to prevent hoodlums? To prevent thuggery? What are the processes you are going to put as a community, as a street, as a village, as a small place? What are we going to do? Because we're already doing it for ourselves. Are we going to start praying and fasting now so that we can secure our area? Those that are Muslims, are you going to start declaring prayer and fasting in all our churches and mosques to protect our streets on election day specifically? That as our vote is leaving, nobody will steal it. That's a good place to direct our prayers, don't you think? Instead of praying that all the things we're praying, can't we direct that no thug will agree to be influenced? They will collect the money and eat it, but they will not do the work. We can pray that prayer. That's a good prayer point in case our pastors and our imams don't know what to pray. Or you that are prayer people, we don't know what to pray. We can pray that every thug, every official that wants to receive bribe, they will chop the money, but they will not do the work. They will not do the work. That's a very good prayer. That's a good thing. Then you can now start mobilizing door to door, street chairman, area chairman, community. Because I want to ask all the chairmans, all the community leaders, all the respected individuals that live on streets, are you not tired, Sam, ma, to be feeding people, paying school fees? How many can you pay? The burden was not for us to carry on our own. There is a system that has been built to carry those problems. But because we have refused to participate in that system, the system is doing what it likes, and the burden of that responsibility has now come to us as citizens, which is not supposed to be so. You cannot take care of anybody, sir. Ma, you cannot take care of everybody. Let us tell everybody, all the people that are coming to meet you for support, ask them, where your PVC? The people that come to ask you for school fees, ask them, where's your PVC? The people that work in your organization, ask them, where's your PVC? Do it. Because non-participation, it is still participation. We are still saying something. Bring somebody with you on election day. The woman in Kano, the you that has given up in Sokoto, you that is tired in Nasarawa, You that does not have a job in Ibadan, that you are still looking for a job. You in Lagos that the price of rent is finishing you and you don't know what to do next. Tell everybody. Everybody must get a all your friendship circles before you start any meeting. I dare say in Nigeria, we should do a what? A PVC stand up. If you're in this meeting, can we see your PVC? If you don't have a physical, can we see a picture of it? If you don't have it, have you registered? Let us see those things so that we know those that are for us and those that are against us. Your vote is not a small thing. It was never meant to be. The number says it, we have discussed it. The history says the story. Please, let us not treat the power we have as if it is nothing. Let us stop that statement of our vote does not count. Thank you for being with me on today's podcast. My name is Temesan Ojabo, and this has been for the Oaks of Africa podcast, the Civic Intelligence for Nation Builders podcast. Please don't forget to go register, go confirm, go transfer, go pick up, and go out there come January 16th to vote. I pray that this has appealed to your conscience, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.